Good morning everyone, welcome to my channel. So today it's time to do some stitching on my quilt. This is a slow stitched, built up with layers and layers of my favorite fabrics, all stitched down with running stitch with a few little pops of interest that allow me to have a little play. Now I'll just flip it over if you're new to the channel. This is the back. So it too is a collage of fabrics. The first panel is featuring this gorgeous flower sack. I've got some fabric sneaking from the front over to the back, but this won't be as heavily embellished with fabrics because it's all about the flower sacks. Now just flipping it back. Now on the front, I've got this little piece of vintage upholstery fabric from one of Rachel's packs, and I want to lightly, emphasis on lightly, stitch into it. So to keep the girl under control, I've pulled out a few threads. Now you might be thinking, why has she got orange there? See this little guy here? That orange? I think I need to do something with the orange. I haven't yet grabbed a pink. I just went with a burgundy tone, which I think ties into that, and into here. And I matched the best blue I could to give that denim blue sort of tone and a neutral. So the plan is, now I think we're week 3 in the month that we work on the block, is to do some mark making. Now the reason I call it mark making is it's classic Rachel, and this is a tribute to Rachel's creativity and all of the effort she's put into her channel, and I've been watching her for years, so mark making is definitely a term that I've heard Rachel use. Thread painting is another one that we've been doing all through the Roxy Journal of Stitchery project. So yeah, it's now time to do some stitching, but not too much, not too much. What I'm thinking, first of all, is go around this guy. I'm just going to pause the video for one moment. I've got my husband looking at me through a door just here, so he obviously needs to tell me something. Back in a moment, guys. Okay, I'm back. Now he's out there drilling. So, oh goodness, the noise. I hope it's not too annoying. So, where was I? Let me just zoom in and let's see if we can work out a plan of attack for this guy. I'm thinking I'm going to do a running stitch. Now remember, I don't want my threads to peek through on the other side now, but we have layers of fabric, we have wadding, so I'm pretty confident I can slither through without, you know, the stitches showing on the other side. Now, for those of you who are planning on doing some heavy embroidery on your quilt, for those of you who are doing a similar thing to me where we're just sort of highlighting a beautiful piece of fabric that may have a floral, I'm going to just try and keep myself under control and not do too much stitching. But just depends on what you're wanting to do. I'm thinking I'm going to do first a running stitch around this flower in the background colour, and if I keep my needle very horizontal, I tell you, as soon as you start videoing, they decide to drill some holes. Oh dear. I want one of those retractable hoses attached to the house. I'm sick of winding up the hose as I water the garden, so got one at Bunnings and it's being installed. So it's a good noise. It's going to help me stay tidy. So it's a good noise. Yeah, this will work. I've never really stitched into a flower with minimal thought, like not minimal thought, but you know, don't do too much. I've usually just gone with whatever I feel and stitched and stitched. So paring it back it's sort of the style of quilt top, I think, too, that it's just a hint of detail. And I deliberately missed going through that flower with this running stitch. And you see one little stitch did pop through. Let's see how we're going on the back. Can we see any blue? Nope. That's great. So this should work. It's heavy going, but these upholstery fabrics, gorgeous as they are, or heavy curtaining Sanderson fabrics. I'm just not sure what the story is with this one. It was a little morsel in one of the packs of fabrics that I've bought from Rachel. I've got some bigger pieces. I think I showed them at the end of last week's video. I've got bigger pieces. That's fudgy bumping the camera. Got bigger pieces in the cupboard that I may chop into. Fudgy, please. This is nice and simple stitching. Oh, now we've got a fudge cat. Hey, Fudgy. What's going on? Did the noise wake you up, darling? I'll tell you, it's heavy stitching going through these thicker fabrics, isn't it? Poor old fingers, working hard. If I was thread painting this in, you know, go for it fashion, I would probably stitch out lots of stitches to make it really pop. But we're not doing that, are we, Fudge? If you want to, go for it. But that's what I'd do. I'd lay down heaps of stitches, radiating out. Oh my goodness, I so would like to do that, but we're not going to. We're just going to do a simple little running stitch. Oh, just peek through there, look. Is that a stitch? Yes, it is. I'm going to backtrack because that'll annoy me. So there's a lesson. Take your time, keep checking the opposite side. You can see why thread painting this would be quite a challenge. And with a high, that's got it, a high risk of coming through. If you like the look of your stitches coming through on the other side, we'll go for it. Look, don't let me hold you back. But I do want to keep a little bit of control over where I have stitches showing, just not for the sake of it. It has added a degree of difficulty, I must say, but that's all good. It's slowing me down, so bullet a gate's not the way to proceed, because you just got to keep checking that you haven't come through. I do have my finger right there as well, so I'm hoping that I can pick up on the fact that maybe the needle has popped through. I might just come up there. This goes a bit odd there, but I'm going to follow the blue. As soon as I run out of blue, I'll change to another colour. So I guess in essence this is a form of quilting, hand quilting it too. But we'll call it stitching, embellishing. This is, I think, going to add just another layer of detail to our work. And the more you look at it, the more things people will see, you know, when they've got the quilt on their lap. If you've got a beautiful flower too, don't be afraid to get some Inktense pencils out and add a pop of colour to tie it all together. If there's a colour on your flower that isn't quite right and you think you need to darken it, don't be afraid to Get your Inktense products out. Okay, so I've got a little bit of blue left. Is it enough to scoot across there and do a lap around there? No, it's getting a bit tight. So I'm just going to knot off, and I'm going to attempt to bury my knot in there and under there. Just a simple little slip stitch, and then give it a little trim. So I won't bore you with coming back with more blue, but I just need to do the top side of the rose and then down there. So let's move on to another thread colour. I'm going to go this beige one, and let's see how this. And because these pieces are tacked down with all of our stitching, it's pretty easy to slip your needle in and just sort of find your spot, and then your knot disappears. You might need to trim the tail of your knot off a little bit so it really disappears, and then away you go again. So what have we got happening here? We've got all of these petals. I think I'll keep it fairly loose. I'm not going to outline the petal as I see it in every scenario. That petal there, I will, but I'm not going to break it down smaller because I think that is actually 2 petals there. We're just going to keep it stylized without meow meow. Let's see how this looks. As I was hand sewing this over the last weeks, I've been gazing at this flower, sort of studying it, thinking, well, how am I going to approach embellishing this with stitch? So it's looking like the 3rd week for me on this block is embellishing with stitches. I think I said in the last video that I wasn't 100% sure how each stage of each block would roll. The easy one is week 1, where we lay it all out and running stitch it all down. Week 2 seemed to be thinking about embellishments, whether it be lace or a piece of embroidery or a treasure. Week 3 is looking like stitching into your piece with additional elements like what I'm doing here, top stitching a nice piece of fabric. Maybe you want to put a verse or some words on a piece of fabric. There might be a spot that would lend to a piece. I need to grab Fudgy. He's about to jump off this table. Hang on, guys. Hey, Fudgy, don't jump. Come on. Okay. You know the rule. We don't want old pussycats jumping down your, put down the needle, grab the cat. So this little petal tucks in here. So I'm going to follow that line as well. One thing I have learnt so far, that if I am considering putting in these heavier upholstery fabrics, I'm only going to do a morsel. I might come up, because it is heavy stitching on my little fingers. I should put a thimble on. I don't usually use a thimble. When I do, it means things are getting tender. So it might pay to do a little bit of stitching with it on. So now I've finished that little petal. I'm now looking at this petal. So I might stitch that next, only because my needle is sort of there. And I feel like that's a good starting point. Head out to that perimeter. When you're doing running stitch around a flower like this, sometimes less is more. Let the eye see that it's a petal coming up there. You don't need to outline it distinctively. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. Yeah, that's good. I guess the question is, how far do I go? Do we put a little bit of red in? Or do we just keep it at this? It's going to be another decision. Just coming back to where I started. Now I still have some thread left, so I think I'm going to jump down here and catch that leaf, that petal. I've just glanced up to the TV where my iPad is projecting, and you guys are actually getting a clearer view of the overall flower than I am sitting here looking at it. And it's one of those, you know, when you see paintings and you're up close and it doesn't look real, you know, impressive, but you stand back and suddenly this Monet pops off the page at you. I'm actually getting a better feel for the flower by looking at the TV in the distance than I am looking at the actual piece. Don't lose your way, back to there. I guess if you're stumped and you like need to work out your petals beforehand, what you could do, here's an idea, is get your heat soluble pen and have a little draw. Then you don't have to think. Now there's a petal here, so I would stitch the next line of stitching here. I would do that one next. I would then do this one next. I would probably bring that one up into there. And, you know, don't be afraid if you did want to change your thread colour. I've just picked the one neutral colour, but you could play around a little bit. But no, Corinne, keep it simple. Can you hear it? You can hear the cogs turning. So I hope you can see. Let me zoom in a little bit more. This might help you to work out where you're going to stitch instead of just free forming and then going, oh, I don't like that. So there's your hot tip for the day. It's good if you're watching a movie, then all you got to do is follow the black lines and then iron it out. So I feel like I could bring that down into there, and that would be a separate petal. Okay, now let's assume that I've done that. Let's have a look at this red. How are we going to do the red? Do we just do, hey fudge, I'm going to pinch that. Do we just do a little, oh goodness, these are number 8s pearl crochet cottons, if you're wondering. Remember, I stitched the background with a number 12 finer, and that really came down to didn't want it too chunky, didn't want to hurt my fingers as I drag through multiple layers. I'm wondering if I can sneak my needle up. Come on. Through to there. Did I come through? Nope. Trim off my little knot so it just disappears. That's got him buried. Now, what are we going to do in here without doing too much? Maybe we just do some long and short stitches. Let's just have a little stitch. We can always take it out. Just loose not too close together, just a little highlight. So close to slipping into that fully thread painted look. Okay, now I might just sneak up. Where will I go next? I might come up there. I'm just going to spin it around a bit. I feel a bit cack-handed here. Maybe if we just focus on the center. Don't get carried away out here, girl. Just put a few little stitches. Because what I thought too is make some marks out on the perimeters of this piece as well. So take this red, for example, and pop it somewhere else where we just do a little bit of stitching. Now remember, this is a big quilt, so don't be doing things that you know, you time-wise you look at and go, well, that's 15 hours just to finish that. Try and be clever about it. It gives you the over-stitched detail, I guess the slow-stitched detail, without the hours. That's why working on one little piece is not such a silly idea. There we go. I like that. Oh, I'm so tempted to do more, but I'm just going to come up here at a different angle. Have we come through the back? Nope. Okay. Please proceed. Maybe I'll get a pink and stay in the center. So I'm so tempted to go up there, but don't do it, girl. I could find another dusty pink and come back in here. Now, if you can't get to the end to knot off and you need to knot off and you're out in the middle of a piece, I'll show you another little trick. Work your needle back through, take the tiniest of little stitches, head back under your work, and then change direction, take another tiny little stitch and come back under your work. That will not come out. And then you can give it a little tension and a snip, and that stitch up here has gone all the way through there, turned around and come back. That's not going to come out in a hurry. So there's our little bit of red. I think I will go looking for a dusty pink just to thicken that up a little bit. There is a burgundy tone there, so I promise you faithfully I'll just hang around that little corner. So the next thing I wanted to do is have a look at this, and I feel like I could do something with this. Got a few options. I've got it a bit sideways. Let me just bring the camera up. I could do a running stitch around it. So what I would do then is I just lay it down and we'll assume that there's a running stitch around the whole piece, and then decide, do you like that? Like so, like a little box around it. Let me come up a little bit more. So that's one option. Another option is you could do just a few rough stitches. That I do want to try that. I think that's something that Rachel would probably do in her work. She's probably looking at this going, no, I do this. But I'm just gonna try. It is attached down already because it's been turned over and stitched right around the perimeter, so it's not going anywhere. What if I did some stitches back into here? Let's get this little knot nice and tidy so that as it slips in, it just disappears. We'll start with, I think, just an overcast stitch. So my little knot's disappeared. He's in there. And this could, what's Gaz doing now? Seriously. This could really be applied. Ow! Oh my goodness, see, I lose concentration. Now I've got a bleeding finger. And here we go. This surface is beige and I've got a bleeding finger. I might pause the video, guys, because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to get into this and forget about this, and I'm going to have a stain, and Gaz is making a lot of noise just outside my door. So I'm going to put down the needle. I'm going to take a breather, go pat the cat, let my finger settle down, and I will be back. Won't be long. Okay, I'm back. Okay, about an hour or so has gone by. Just would not stop bleeding, my poor little finger. It's a bit of a hazard of quilting, isn't it? So I'm going to try make this a bit messy. Gosh, it's hard to do messy when your brain is trying to line things up. So I'm just doing a little bit of a stitchy thing here. You do whatever you want. If you want to make it more of a formal window, go for it. This is where I'm going to try and get a bit of that slow stitch feel, using coloured threads on top. Slow down. Look, I've come through ever so slightly. I sort of felt like I was getting a bit heavy-handed, and sure enough, I've come through. It's that stitch that picks up in under. Okay, just to remind myself to keep checking and keep my needle nice and horizontal. Where's my thimble? You're soon reminded when you have a sore finger. That's better. So you don't need to do this step. If you feel your quilt's got enough embellishments, you don't need to do this. I just sort of feel like it suits this scrappy look that I'm going for. Just like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but not too much of anything. Oh my goodness, how's that for a rule of thumb? Now I'm going to finish it off, so I'm just going to sneak through with a little bit of length, come back through the other side, catching some fabrics. That's not going to go anywhere. Give it a little snip. Now, got a bit of thread left, so let's do a little bit more embellishing, but this time I might just come in here a little bit and do some running stitch through here. Now this is all very subjective. You could place these stitches in many locations and hum and ha and doubt that it's the right spot, but don't. Just stitch it because your instinct put the needle there. Don't overthink it. I know that's hard at times because we're all guilty of it. Better check the back to make sure we're being good. Yep. So you can see how once we work out a little bit of a repertoire of stitches we like, then you can glance back at your whole piece and go, all right, well, I love how that stitch felt. I'm going to do it again, but maybe down here, you know. This will help drag the colour palette around your work as well. Let's say you laid down a heap of fabrics that all have this very burnt orange sorts of tones, and you feel like you're missing your blues. Well, then your threads on week 3 could bring those blues in. That dark blue I just love. So I'll definitely be hunting fabric down that brings that navy blue in. But let's say I don't find anything for 2 or 3 blocks. Well, then I might go, all right, well, where's the thread? And do some stitching to get that blue in there. Does that make sense? That's how I see this stitching. Now you might say, all right, well, I've got a little bit left. What would it look like if I went through that way with a few stitches? Let's just do it. Why not? No rhyme or reason. I can't, I guess, show you exact design because you need to have a look at your piece and go, well, where could I do that and how much do I do, and just have a go. I'm going to do one more stitch, then I might come back. It's like we've picked up a pen and just had a little scribble on a blank piece of paper, and then that little scribble is our thread where we're having a little scribble with our thread. Does that make sense? But see how you go. You might find this just melts your noodle and you're overthinking it, but that's okay. Just skip it. But I think, like if I see Rachel when she journals, she'll do mark making on pieces of fabric and also paper, and then tear those pieces up and use them as little decorative elements. See what I mean? Just little stitchy bits. Does that make sense? So you could then go, all right, well, we'll come back through again and do some more stitching with the blue. It's up to you. Up to you. Now I might go orange next. I sort of felt like I wanted to drag this orange around a little. I think this too is going to set the tone for any embroideries I add to it are going to be bold, which is great. I'm just loving it. But I love how there's this old look in there as well, just to push back the boldness. Let's, where could we put some? Maybe we just do a little bit through here. Why not? So let's bury our knot in under there, because we've got a little edge we can disappear into. And let's assume that's printed, that edge. That's part of Rachel's design, but let's assume it's not for a moment and just do a bit of stitching up that edge. It'll give us a pop of colour. And remember, I picked this orange, doing like a whip stitch up there. I picked this orange because it was this little guy. And I don't know why I focused on him, but I did. That stitch is a bit crooked. Take your time, girl. Okay, so I've got, I might save my thread a little bit and do this type of stitching. So it still gets me that lineal line, but I'm using slightly less thread in the process. You could spend hours doing this type of stitching on your work, as little as you like. You know, the other thing about this, when this quilt's finished, and yes, we will finish. Some of you are a little nervous, but we will. You could literally pick up a needle and thread at any time and do some stitching exactly like this into it, or add a swatch of fabric. That's the beauty of this. As long as you remember you're not going through the other side, you're just adding more embellishments. So that now looks like that's a patch of fabric. I love it. I wouldn't go around the whole patch, I don't think. Or would I? I could. It might be a little bit too much. I just want to put a little detail. So to end off, I'm just going to bury my thread in there. Gonna catch it, come back. So I've done like a U-turn. And now I'm just going to do the same, but I'll head down through those stitches and come up. That won't come out. That's embedded nicely. So there you go. That's a really easy way of bringing a colour that you love but may not be on a panel, but you can say, all right, little orange, you're here. Maybe the next panel I find a bright orange piece of fabric that makes sense to this little highlight here. It's going to be interesting how this evolves. Colour's amazing. When you start piecing together panels, yeah, amazing how colour can affect things. So even feel like I could come back through here and stitch some little daisies into this, or put some little lines on this. See how they've stitched here? Well, what's stopping us doing that on there? So 3 little stitches. Let's do it. Oh, don't get too crazy with stitching either, girl. You know it's going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. We're embellishing, we're not thread painting. I've only got a little bit of thread, so let's sneak our needle in. So then we get our knot. Yep. And we're going to not go through. Yep. A few of you asked what's happening with this big piece of fabric at the top of my flower sack. Nothing at the moment. Until I start the next panel that joins in, I can't make that decision. I might want it, I might not. I'm just going to leave all these dangly bits until it comes to the moment when I go, right, you are no longer needed. So there's my little stitch. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of a scoot around in the background there to bury my end. Like, it's so subtle what I just did there, and you could argue that was probably not needed, but I like how that's now into there. Like, you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, girl, it's a bloomin' quilt. Maybe that's because we've been so used to doing small pieces with our Roxy Journal of Stitchery projects that I'm still thinking small scale. Possibly. That's all good. If you've got the time, do it. If you're time poor, just get your layers of fabric stitched together. Who knows, you might pick up your quilt in the years to come and go, well, now I have some time, let's put another layer of embellishing. So I'm just going to put, can't help myself, guys, a couple more little stitches here of this thread. I've got a little bit left, and I think we can do it. Now I'm ending it off just by passing it through. See, these little embellishments you put on, you could decide, sorry, I'm out of camera shot here, let me just get my hands back. You could decide that you want some little spots or little French knots put on that sprig to increase the volume of your piece. Gosh, the possibilities. Okay. I know in the beginning of the project I did tout around the idea of little houses. I haven't yet ruled it out. I've lost my needle. I just haven't found the spot for it yet. What did I do with the needle? Can't have gone too far. For goodness sakes. Well, that might be a sign that I finish up. No, that's it. I did put it off. yeah, I sort of feel like I could do more stitching in this edge. Let's do it. So I've got a green as well out. No. Let's go for that blue. My instinct was to use the blue about 10 minutes ago. Let's do, because it picks up that blue. You can't even see what I'm pointing at. Let me get my thread sorted, guys, and I'll show you. It's all well and good zooming in, but it's very easy to be out of shot. Okay, let's get ourselves a little bit better situated. So I picked up the blue. I remember before I was like, oh, I feel like I could do something in there. I still do. So let's hide our thread and come up there. What are we doing? We're going to do some bigger stitches through. See what it looks like. Layering colours, all getting fancy. Are we going through? Nope. It's certainly going to be a quilt. The more you look, the more you might see. I like that idea. Just a little bit of blue. I am not even on camera. Seriously, guys. You know, it looks messy. I can't do it. Nope, it's coming out. Don't like it. I just glanced up at the TV. The blue and the red have merged together, so my eye is now not defining those stitches. It looks okay close up, but it doesn't look right. What if I went down there? No, don't like it. There you go. Scrap that idea, guys. Now I've got to get my little knot out of there. There you are. Done. Not going to do that. Change of plan. So there you go. Just experiment, guys. Just see where it leads you. Have a stitch. If you don't like it, pull it out. Just leave it at that, Corinne. Okay. I might say goodbye. I think you got the general gist of embellishing with thread, whether it be random mark making or you work in on one of your actual floral pieces and stitch into it. Either way, that's the next step, doing some stitching. And then next week, I'm going to focus on the back. And I might go hunting for a piece of embroidery. I sort of feel like I've got this swishy corner here that I could do something with. So that's what I'll be doing next week, is rummaging through my doilies and see if I can find something a bit special to add to the back. All right. Have a good week, and I will catch you all in the next video. Bye, guys.